the mind, the ego, the headspace, whatever we might call it, is meant to be used as a tool. It is not meant to be our master. It is not meant to tell us how to live, how to be, who we are, any of these things. It's a tool that we have to process information and to go about putting the pieces together, moving them around in ways that are going to suit us, the deeper being, the being that exists below the mind, below the thoughts, or should I say above the mind and above the thoughts. But what I want to get across here is that it is deeper where we are. Where we are exists on such a more fundamental, basic place than where the mind is processing all this stimuli and all this information. And the mind, for a lot of people, ends up running their life. And the mind can end up ruining your life if you let it. So, how does the mind do that? See these bugs, see exactly like that. These bugs are gonna fly around and they're gonna show up and they're just gonna buzz, 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 buzz. I'm bothering you, right? And if we give into that, in other words, if we allow the deeper feeling sensation that is us to be altered by what the mind is doing, then we have given our power away to the mind, right? It can show up in all sorts of different ways. Maybe you're having some repetitive negative thought form, or the mind is trying to tell you how you are and how you should be. You don't want to be that way. That's not how you know you are. That's not how you are. But the mind is trying to tell you all this. It's not trying to tell you this because it knows something. It's not trying to tell you because it knows how you are, who you are, what you are. The mind is a finite thing trying to perceive the infinite being that is you. And so long as it's doing that, it's gonna just be making stuff up. But the whole point and the whole trickery of the mind is that it's going to make things up in order to get you to react and respond to it, because it needs your energy, right? As I said, the mind is a tool, and we can use the mind to create in our reality when we combine it, when we align all of the poles and put it together into a way that's going to empower those thought forms to turn them into something greater than just thoughts. But until we do that, they're just thoughts. They're just like clouds that are passing by, and eventually will be dissipated by the sun. They'll turn back into the vapor and it'll just be a clear head once again. So the mind might come at you with all these random things just to get you to pay attention to it. Because if you're sitting in your neutral space, in a space of, all right, I'm good. I'm feeling good right now. I'm vibrating the way that I want to vibrate. I'm feeling the way that I want to feel. And the mind all of a sudden shows up with this, hey, what about this? What about this? Hey, come and do this. The best thing to do is to do nothing. I mean specifically nothing, right? Because I'm not saying to just go with it, nor am I saying to deny it. Because if we were to deny what the mind brought up and just say like, no, that's not it. That's not me. I don't believe that. We start doing this, then we've all of a sudden put ourselves into a duality where we're all of a sudden arguing with our mind, right? We've put ourselves into an argument. And so instead of just being in our center, being whole, we've now divided where it's us and the mind. It's us and the mind, and now the mind's trying to tell us this, and we're trying to say, no, that's not me, that's not it, I don't believe that. And it changes the way that we're feeling. It changes and alters our vibration, and that gives the mind power over you, right? Because that's what the mind's trying to do. The mind is very insecure. The ego is very insecure. It wants to find ways to find power over you, to get power over you. And it will do it in ways that are even harmful to you, and can cause you pain, can cause you mental distortions, can cause all these things that are not going to lead you to living a happy, abundant, fulfilled, peaceful life, right? So then we have the other spectrum of this, right? Passivity. You just go with it. In other words, just let the mind drive the ship, right? Whatever it says goes. We're just going to go with that. We're going to go with this. I think it's pretty obvious to all of you that wouldn't end well. Right? The mind comes up with all sorts of things. Everybody has all sorts of weird thoughts that happen just randomly out of the blue. And that's because the mind's all of a sudden saying like, hey, if I poke them with this, maybe I can feel like I have something to grasp. because then the mind can get you to get involved, can get the feeling center of you to get involved, and all of a sudden interact with the mind in a way that's going to make the mind feel that's ironic in itself, because the mind is not a feeling component, but it's going to make give the mind this sensation that it has a grasp over something, because it's controlling your emotions, right? If you were to just release all of that, right? Because oftentimes our thoughts and our mind, it's kind of like a wine cork floating on water, right? Those little corks that are just made of wood, they're floating on the surface of the water. Every time a thought comes by, and we as the observer, the observing being in this dynamic, in this relationship, in other words, we can choose whether or not to engage. When we choose to engage, we take that cork, which is the mind, and we pull it under the surface of the water. And the more we grab onto thoughts, the more we identify with the thoughts, the further down we're going to pull that under the water. And what happens when you get deeper and deeper into the water, right? It becomes more pressurized. You start to feel the pressure. You start to feel like the world's caving in on you. It's collapsing. There's so much going on. And then you get so stressed out. And a lot of people begin to base their identity on that feeling of stress, on that feeling of, I have to have this thing in order to grab onto, in order to give me a sensation that I have some grasp on life. Because the mind cannot handle, it cannot fathom the whole premise that there's nothing to hold on to. We're just along for this ride, and we as the observer, I'm not saying you don't necessarily have control over your life. That's a different story in itself, but what I am saying is you have control over how you're going to respond to the stimuli that comes into your field at any given time. So don't fall for the trickery of the mind. The mind is not you. The mind does not define you. The mind does not tell you how to be. It just thinks thoughts that can often be completely irrelevant, if not most of the time be completely irrelevant, unless you are consciously directing your mind as to what you are focusing on. When you consciously direct your mind, create thoughts, create images, create feelings, combine those together, that's when you begin creating in your reality. But when the mind tries to do this on its own, without you, all it does is create problems. So don't fall for the trickery of the mind. Know that you, as the observer, have the power to just watch, to step back, let the mind do what it's doing, do nothing. You don't have to be passive. You don't have to engage. When you let the mind do what it's doing and then begin to use it as the tool that it is, that's when you're ultimately going to find out how little power it actually has over you and how you can be free from it. Enjoy your day.